Namaskar and a very warm welcome to this edition of the Phone In program. I'm Nidhi Kumar and you're watching India Science. As the world finally started to pick up, the deadly Delta variant has now gone rogue. The Delta variant of COVID 19 has been identified to be the dominant strain worldwide. India has so far, meanwhile, vaccinated a total of 40 crore people till date. In this phone in program where you can ask your questions, we take your queries live. So we are joined today by Dr. K. Srinath Reddy, Padma Bhushan, President, Public Health Foundation of India and former head of cardiology at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences. He's also a member of the WHO's Executive Committee looking at effective treatments against COVID-19. Many thanks for joining us today. Namaste and welcome, Dr. Srinath Reddy, sir.
Pleasure to be with you. Thank you.
Sir, my first question before we take on the callers is, since you're at the WHO, I request you to please classify a variant of concern vis-a-vis a variant of interest. What is the difference in both these? And the ones that we're seeing now, Sir, Lambda, Kappa and even Zika, could you enlighten us about these?
Well, variants are essentially mutations in the virus which confer it with certain properties. Is it more infective? Is it more virulent? Is it more likely to evade or escape the effect of the immunity that is being produced, either by way of natural infection or by way of vaccination, or even by the monoclonal antibodies that are being manufactured as a part of passive immunity. Now, the variants can either become much more infectious or they can even become virulent in terms of producing more severe disease. But one of the major areas of concern is when they start evading vaccine efficacy, because then our method of control becomes less effective. Variant of concern is when a virus has all three characteristics, is spreading quite rapidly in the population and is becoming responsible for a large number of cases in the population. Even if the virulence is not demonstrably increased, by increasing the number of cases manyfold, it will overwhelm the healthcare system, and the large number of infected cases will also yield a large number of severe infections and possibly deaths. Therefore, a variant becomes important when its impact in terms of disease in the population is very high. A variant of interest is where it is seen to be present. It may become a little more infectious. It may be having some vaccine evasion properties, but its spread in the population is very limited, and therefore its impact is still very limited. But it is a variant that will be watched with interest, because should it gather force and start spreading to large number of people, then it will become a variant of concern. So that is where the differentiation lies.
We are again joined by a caller, but meanwhile, I'm getting your YouTube question. Somebody from Delhi wants to know, sir, about cardiovascular complications in COVID-19 cases.
I am unable to hear you.
So, the cardiovascular complications or people with cardio anxieties, their kind of complications post COVID-19. That's a YouTube question that has come for us, sir.
Well, as far as the heart is concerned, we know that the heart can be affected directly or indirectly. Now, directly, the virus can cause inflammation in the heart muscle, cause myocarditis, where the muscle can get highly inflamed and therefore its function can be decreased and the pumping ability can be decreased. even the covering layer of the heart, which is the pericardium, which covers the muscle, can get inflamed and you can get pericarditis, sometimes with fluid collection in the pericardial sac, which actually encases the heart. So you can have direct effects on the heart. But you can also have a lot of indirect effects where the virus can cause inflammation of the blood vessels, whether they're arteries or veins, and affect many organs in the body. And some of the blood vessels which can be affected are the blood vessels which supply blood to the heart muscle and the coronary arteries. And if they get inflamed, or if there are pre-existing plaques there, which because of the inflammation can break loose and cause clotting, then you can get heart attacks. You can also get clotting in the big blood vessels, the veins of the legs and the abdomen, and the blood vessels from there can actually get the clots dislodged, and the clots can go into the lungs, causing what's called pulmonary embolism, which can be life-threatening because the lungs stop functioning, and that puts a huge load on the right side of the heart, and you can get heart failure as well. So both directly and indirectly, you can get the heart being involved. Now, it has also been observed that people who are relatively asymptomatic or have had mild infection and recover clinically and do not seem to have a problem, when they are subjected to imaging, especially MRI imaging, some areas of myocardial fibrosis or muscle fiber fibrosis have been noted in these images. But while many of these people have been followed up, including athletes who are being evaluated before resuming their sporting activities, it has been found that while you may have some imaging abnormalities, by and large, the heart function is not affected in these people, and we may not really have to worry too much about it. However, the fact that the heart can get admitted is a matter of concern, and therefore all the more the need for preventing the infection in the first place, rather than just worrying about what it might do after the infection has occurred.
Absolutely, sir. Sir, I request you to please explain the Delta Plus variant, sir.
Fine. I heard you now because earlier I couldn't hear you properly. The Delta variant essentially has three prominent mutations. Previously, we were concerned about the the Delta variant because we have had a mutation that has been brought in from a previously observed mutation which increased its infectivity, but also a mutation that is common to the California mutant, which has given it a greater opportunity for vaccine evasion or vaccine escape. So these two mutations made it somewhat more problematic. It spreads much faster, and it also has the property of evading or escaping vaccine related immunity. It also escapes monoclonal antibodies and also the antibodies produced by the previous infection. Doesn't escape completely because with full vaccination, it is still possible to get mild infection, but severe infection and death are greatly reduced. But the Delta Plus, which has added a third mutation, is also being observed to see whether, apart from greater infectivity, it will also have greater ability to evade the vaccines because it has added an additional mutation which has been noted earlier in the Beta variant from South Africa. And since the Beta variant has shown a great ability to evade the effect of vaccines and reduced vaccine efficacy of several vaccines, therefore the question is whether the Delta Plus is going to be problematic by way of vaccine evasion. But so far, the Delta Plus has not spread widely. It has been seen in a few countries, and even in India, it contributes to a very small number of cases. And therefore, at this point in time, there is no need for us to worry about Delta Plus. We should still focus on the Delta variant because it is not only the most widespread virus, but it is also a virus which has been shown to have reduced efficacy of vaccines against it. But when we say reduced efficacy, it doesn't mean that the vaccines are not effective. Given in 2 full doses, the vaccines have been shown to be effective, particularly against the risk of severe infection and death. Milder forms of infection may still occur, but that should not worry us too much. However, since a small fraction of people will get severe infection as well and may not respond even to monoclonal antibodies, it is important that we try and prevent the infection in the first place. And Delta has become very important globally because of its ability to spread very fast. Right now, 99% of the infections in UK, 52% of the infections in USA are all because of Delta. And even in Southeast Asian countries that we are seeing, like Korea, Singapore, and everywhere else, where the pandemic was greatly under control, the entry of the Delta virus has proved to be quite problematic, particularly in Indonesia, where there is a huge epidemic now because of the Delta variant. So we still have to guard against the Delta variant by taking all the precautions against viral transmission, like wearing masks and avoiding crowds and ensuring that large crowded gatherings are not permitted.
Yes, sir. We joined by another caller, Kavita Mishra ji from Mumbai. Namaste, Kavita ji. Please ask your question.
Hello, ma'am. Hello, sir. This is Kavita. And sir, my question is that since you are the WHO and WHO authority, and recently there have been 14 cases of Zika virus in Kerala. Also, we are hearing about Lambda and Kappa variants. Sir, can you please tell us why should Asia worry about Zika?
Why
Zika
should
virus
Asia
is
worry about
different
Zika
from the
virus?
COVID virus. It is a virus that is actually transmitted by mosquitoes. The Aedes mosquito is the one that carries that virus. And since Kerala has had a concern about Nipah virus, etc., we are worried also about the Zika virus entering into India or anywhere else for that matter. So we ought to take all precautions against it, and particularly since we know the method of transmission, controlling mosquitoes is going to be a very, very important element. And one of the reasons why we worry a little about Zika more than some of the other viruses is because in Latin America, it has had a considerable amount of effect in terms of having children affected by what's known as microcephaly. If pregnant women are affected, then the children who are born have very small heads because the growth of the heads is limited. And therefore, this microcephaly is a very important element that makes Zika more dangerous. But we certainly can prevent it, as we must try and prevent the transmission through the mosquitoes of malaria or chikungunya or other diseases which are vector-borne. So that is something that we must look at. As far as other variants are concerned, which you mentioned, whether it is the Lambda or the Kappa variant, the Kappa variant is just a cousin of the Delta variant. It is B1617.1. But because it's the Delta which has actually become the more dominant virus, it's the B1617.2, which is now the most dominant virus in the world. It has spread to so many countries now, more than 84 countries. And not only in India, but in Europe, it's becoming the biggest danger, and the entire Southeast Asia is now in its grip as well. So it is the Delta that still remains dangerous, not the Kappa as yet. And the Lambda virus is basically something that was detected in Peru, and it was seen to be quite a problematic virus. And that is something that we must worry about as well, because that was responsible for a severe spread of the infection in Peru. But since it has not entered India, it has also not become a major problem in Europe or in the US. It is not seen at the moment as one of the biggest threats. and therefore it still remains a variant of interest, whereas the variants of concern are those that have resulted in a huge level of spread, like the alpha, beta, gamma, and delta. They are the ones that have been shown to affect not only in one country, but across many countries, and cause a severe rise in the number of cases across many countries. So therefore, those four variants have been considered to be not localized threats, but generalized threats, and that's why they're variants of concern.
Sir, we'll ought to run out of names like alpha, beta, gamma, and all of that. But as you said, we should be grateful that the lambda and kappa variant has not landed in India yet. We have another caller with us now, Lakshay from Gwalior. Namaste, welcome to India Science. Please ask your question, Lakshay.
Hello, sir. Hello, ma'am. Good afternoon. My question is that what are the precautions that a heart patient should take post-COVID, and can he have the same medications as before?
Well, basically, a heart patient should continue to take the medications that were advised for the heart condition earlier. Blood pressure needs to be kept under control. And if the person has been taking aspirin earlier, then the person should continue that as well. And other medicines also should be continued, whether it's for reduction of cholesterol or for protection of blood vessels, like the what are called the ACE inhibitors or the angiotensin receptor 2 blockers. All those medicines must continue. Where there can be a slight change in medication is because if a person has been hospitalized and there is a risk of clotting that is expected, particularly in the veins, then in such patients, particularly if they have been in intensive care, they would have been started on anticoagulants during the period of COVID. And post-discharge, when they get back home, usually oral anticoagulants are continued for about 3 weeks or so. So that may be the only change in medication that may be there. But otherwise, all the other medicines that were previously prescribed for the heart must continue to protect the heart and the blood vessels.
Thank you so much for that. We have another caller, Varun from Mumbai. Please ask your question, Arun.
Hello, ma'am. Hello, sir. Sir, please tell us about the latest situation and medication to prevent against fungal infection. Mucor cases are still happening in many parts of India.
Yes, mucormycosis is a big challenge, and there is no doubt about it. And there are multiple reasons that have been suspected why we are seeing so many cases in India. Diabetes and pre-diabetes are very important predisposing factors. When blood sugar levels rise markedly out of control, then the fungus infection has a tendency to grow. We know that persons with diabetes are more prone to fungal infections even before COVID, whether it is the so-called white fungus or candida or other fungal infections. They are more common in uncontrolled diabetes. And with COVID, we have seen mucormycosis, which is commonly seen as a fungus in the atmosphere, become much more dangerous because the resistance falls. Now, inflammation itself caused by COVID infection can increase the level of blood sugars and make diabetes control poor. But when you're also treating COVID with steroids, then steroids also increase the blood sugar levels. So on one hand, you have inflammation in the body. On the other hand, you have blood sugar levels rising. And these give an opportunity for the fungus to settle into the body and become quite dangerous. Now, where does the fungus come from? The fungus is in the air. It can be breathed in as well. Normally, the body doesn't respond to it. It rejects it. But when the resistance is low, then obviously the fungus can actually become dangerous. Similarly, if oxygen supply lines are contaminated and the water which is used for humidification or during the oxygen supply, or if the ventilators is by chance contaminated, or if the masks that people are wearing are contaminated, then the fungus can enter the body. But the important element is if you have diabetes or any other reason why your immunity is suppressed because of medicines, then the fungus has an opportunity to grow. So the first thing is, of course, try and prevent infection from getting into the body, whether of COVID or of the fungus, by taking the right kind of precautions, wearing clean masks, but at the same time ensuring that people who are being given steroids or are on oxygen therapy are closely monitored to see that they are not getting uncontrolled blood sugar levels, or that the water supply lines where oxygen is being bubbled through are absolutely kept clean.
Absolutely, sir, because mucor has been primarily caused by self-medication and taking steroids off the shelves. So we're joined by another caller, Sapna from Ahmedabad. Namaste, welcome to India Science. Please ask your question, Sapna.
Hello, sir. Hello, ma'am. This is Sapna. So my question is, are the mutating viruses a cause of worry? Can you please tell us about the new vaccines by Zydus Cadila and Nestle, and will that be better for us?
So she's asking about the new vaccines that India is getting.
Better?
Sir.
Well, the Zydus Cadila vaccine is an interesting vaccine, which is a DNA vaccine, but it's going to be administered in 3 doses rather than 2 doses, and it's going to be intradermal into the skin rather than the muscle. And therefore, it's a very novel mechanism of action because the DNA platform has not really been used elsewhere for COVID. And also, the intradermal route has so far not been used, though inhalation vaccines are being tried out. So it's a very different kind of vaccine. But it still has to prove its efficacy. There is some preliminary data to suggest that it's likely to be effective, but we need to have the completed trial. Till the phase 3 trial is completed, we still have to reserve our judgment. There is also a subsequent trial that's likely to follow to see whether 2 doses will be enough rather than 3 doses. But this is, as I said, a novel platform, a novel method of administering the vaccine, and we'll have to wait for the full results. So we will then see how effective it is and how easily it can be given to people, particularly younger age group of people.
Thank you, sir. We're joined by another caller, Ruhanika from Chandigarh. Namaste, welcome to India Science. Please ask your question.
Yes, hello, sir. Sir, this is Ruhanika, and my question is that my mother has diabetes and is showing symptoms of long COVID like fatigue, etc. Also, she has still not been given second dose as the time gap for Covishield has been increased. Please, can you give me some advice?
Well, if your mother has already had COVID once and has received 1 dose of vaccine, the assumption is that her immune response is already reasonably strong because she has had exposure to the COVID virus itself, which has multiple antigens, and therefore she would have had a broadband immune response. And if she has had 1 dose of a vaccine, then that could have also helped in increasing the vaccine induced immune response in addition to the natural infection. If she has been advised to wait for 3 months after the infection or after the first dose, then she can continue to do so. But your other concern is about long COVID, whether she actually has this fatigue continuing as a result of COVID. We know that there are several people who can have COVID symptoms lasting beyond 4 weeks, beyond 8 weeks, or even beyond 12 weeks. We still do not know what are all the features that predispose to this, but certainly people who have had fairly severe infection or people who have had diabetes may have more prolonged recovery times. There's no specific treatment. A lot of investigations are going on to try and see how this can be treated, but many people do recover over a period of time. in case of your mother, I think it's best for us to encourage her to start resuming physical activity in stages and build up her stamina, do breathing exercises, and wait for the second dose. But good nutrition is also important in hastening the recovery. But in terms of long COVID, there are still a lot of questions we don't know as to why some people are affected more and others are affected less, and what is the specific treatment. Right now, there are gaps in the knowledge, but good news is that many people have recovered by conditioning their body with good diet, graduated physical exercise, good sleep, and believing that they can actually overcome and recover.
Meanwhile, we're joined by yet another caller, Kritika from Delhi. Namaste. Please ask your question, Kritika.
Hello, sir. This is Kritika. Sir, my question is that, in your view, what are the public health measures that still need to be overemphasized? Like maybe more contact tracing or more policing of the use of mask, or what? And what are the final pushes required to keep the virus retreating? Can you please explain that?
Well, whether it is the original virus or the Delta variant or the Alpha variant or even the Delta plus variant, the only way it can enter our body at the moment that we know of is through the nose, the mouth, and the eyes. So if we can wear a mask when we are outdoor, particularly make sure that we are wearing a mask or even double mask in a closed indoor space. Try and avoid ill-ventilated places as much as possible. Try and be in well-ventilated places as much as possible. And avoid crowds. That is absolutely important. Then we can prevent the virus from entering our body substantially, reduce the risk of doing that. And then we also need to make sure that we are not permitting super spreader events to occur. Because if we prevent the virus from entering our body, it doesn't matter whether it's a variant or whether it was the original virus. We are still closing the doors to the virus, and that's very important. Now, apart from that, of course, we must ensure that our own immunity is built up as much as possible with a good diet, with lots of fruit and vegetables, good sleep, plenty of water. And these are some of the elements that we must try and adopt. Try and avoid highly polluted areas as well, because they will also reduce resistance and cause more lung damage. So these are some of the measures that we must adopt, even as we are trying to advance our vaccination program and get more people vaccinated. Because unless we prevent the virus from entering our body, we will actually allow the virus to come in, and till our vaccination rates markedly increase, a lot of people could get into serious trouble. So you're quite right in saying that there are a number of other public health measures, both at the level of personal behavior as well as in terms of policy enforcement, that must be followed to prevent viral transmission in the first place, even as we are trying to build up our vaccination rates.
Another question that is flashing on our YouTube is a very interesting one, Doctor, and I must take this to you because I happen to resonate with this question. It is that as far as hospitals are concerned, you being the president of the Public Health Foundation of India, can you consider making it compulsory for all people who are going to the hospitals to be fully vaccinated? I think that would be a measure in the right direction. Also, sir, another question which I request you to take is the difference between a monoclonal cocktail, you've often spoken about that, and plasma, and why cannot we give it as a preventive, is one caller wants to know. Before having COVID, can we take that to avoid the third wave or the third variant or the Delta plus variant? Is that possible, sir? Hello? Dr. Reddy, can you hear me? I think due to the rains, we are going on losing touch today. In the end, I'd like to thank Dr. Srinath Reddy for coming on the program and for sharing his thoughts with us. With this is the wrap of this edition of Phone In. We'll surely answer your questions, and in the end, we must try to restrict the Delta variant to a low level by adopting all personal protection and public policy measures to prevent viral transmission while speeding up vaccination. So, vaccinate, 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 and stay safe, stay healthy. We'll see you again next Monday. On that note, namaskar.